Growth doesn't just come from motivation, it comes from learning something new and applying it consistently. Welcome to the Mind and Body Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Murphy. Today I am joined by James Maringo, and we're talking mindset, training, and lifestyle, and how great coaching is really about learning to love the process. James Maringo, welcome. Listen, I wanted you to hop on call with me, definitely because I feel you are extremely passionate about what you do. Just so you guys know, I met James at Unique Fitness in Shirley. Something that I really liked about James when I started working with him was his passion for training. James, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jake. Very excited to be on here today for sure.
Now, James, I know that I worked with you for a little bit, right, within boxing, and we were talking functional movement and stuff like that. What is your favorite part about training? What is it that brings out this light in you? Because you could really tell when you're working with somebody, and I could see it from an outside perspective, and also while you were training and working with me. What is it that sparks this light and this fuse?
Well, first of all, I appreciate all the kind words. It was a blast. Um, Dude, that's a great question. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm blessed that I was able to find it at such a young age. I really feel like my favorite part of what I do is just teaching people, helping people better themselves. Um, a little bit about me, I got into the fitness industry very early. Not to get too crazy and too deep, but I grew up my dad being an alcoholic, obviously a bad addiction. I found fitness, and obviously that's a healthy, good addiction. So that's really why my passion for fitness, began. On top of combining it with, like I told you, like teaching people. I mean, ever since I was young, I loved helping people. I always loved, like, even in class, if someone didn't understand instruction, I would always be the first one to, let the teacher do what they're doing and kind of just go out of my way to help them. Um, and then throughout high school, I realized like teaching might be something I want to pursue. Then, COVID year happened, college was all screwed up. So I decided I wanted to get my feet wet right away instead of going through all the college and stuff like that. A buddy of mine picked me up into the personal training, and, I realized that that's a great job to teach people healthy, good addiction, good habits.
Absolutely,
I tied it all
100%.
together, and I mean, I've been doing it for 4 years. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's just such a rewarding job for sure, you know?
I love that, James. And what I like most about it is you reference teaching. You reference
Yeah,
teaching.
dude. It's
And
so
it
important.
really is, I feel like a lot of people lose that in regards to like when you work with a one-on-one coach or a personal trainer, it is a little bit of teaching. It is educating, and I think that that's
100%.
something that separates you within your practice is that you're not just trying to motivate or inspire the people that you're working with. You're also trying to teach them. James, what would you say is like through your training style, what would you say is like the main thing that you are trying to teach your clients?
So, another great question. And honestly, it's very similar to what I know you would answer, but it's really that mental health. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, I strongly put out there that, if you're not mentally calloused and mentally ready to make the change, you're not going to make it physically. And I know that's something that you strongly, put out there with your athletes and stuff. And that's why I also loved talking to you and connecting with you, working with you. Um, yeah, dude, it's super important to make sure that like your mind needs to be driven into what you're doing. Because if you're not there, you're physically not going to be able to do what you want to do.
Absolutely. And you say mental health and it's funny because we're talking physical. It's like, oh yeah, we're
Right.
showing up to the gym, we're doing physical, but really the physical is for the mind. And it's actually funny because I saw something recently and what they were saying was how one of the greatest forms of exercise for us is just walking. And we,
Right.
we think, obviously we love to strength train and do all these different styles of movement and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if somebody just gets 45 minutes of walking in per day, that does wonders to the mind, does wonders
Right.
to the mind. And I think that that is something that within the fitness industry is kind of looked down on or
Yeah.
underappreciated. You see a lot of fitness influencers that, they might be really lean and they might look really good, but then you question how healthy they are. And I've actually been through an experience when I first started my journey. I put together a nice transformation and I looked really, really healthy, but deep down inside, I struggled mentally and emotionally. And I
Right.
think that that is a powerful tool to use as a personal trainer is like, this isn't just for physical. This is your mind so that you feel good. And even when you get to your physical goals, you still might not mentally be fully fulfilled and happy. And what are some ways or some things that you offer to your clients as far as developing their mindset, maybe outside of session, James, is like how do you piece together what you learn in session, what you do in session outside of the session for them to build their mindset as well? Like what is kind of like a tool you use?
So honestly, like I like to obviously stay in communication through social media, texting, calling, stuff like that. I always tell my clients like obviously our sessions are in the gym, but in reality they're hiring me as a trainer. I should be incorporated in their life whenever they need me. That I'm strong by that. Just occasional calls, texts with my clients, following up, making sure that they're doing their homework. I know that's something that you live by as well. I love that about you as well. You're huge on doing the homework. When we were training together, I was teaching you, and you were one of my best guys. One, you have that athlete in you, but you also have the mental. Back to the mental. You did your homework. You were working out of our sessions constantly, consistently. Another good word, consistency. And that's how you grow. So engraving that into my clients' minds, making sure they're doing their homework, they're staying consistent, they're staying mentally calloused, they're surrounding themselves with great people. Just a lot of advice I'm giving them through their social media, texting, calling, etc. Stuff like that for sure.
I love that. I think that you really do a great job developing true relationship with the people that you work with. And I think it comes from a sense of care. Would you say that it comes from that sense of care, like you actually genuinely care about the person and them reaching their goals?
100%. Like that's the thing. And I talk to millions and millions of people. And funny enough, I was just on a call earlier today with another company I'm partnering up with. And people look at trainers as salesmen, and people love to use that word like sale. Oh, you're selling me on training. But in reality, like the fact that I know that I care is I don't look at it as I'm selling, but I look at it more as I'm helping. Help and
Absolutely.
sell can mean yeah, 100%. It can mean the same thing. Um, so yeah, man, like I've worked with a lot of other trainers in the past. People leave just because they're in it for making money. They're in it for a part-time gig. I know that I've been successful, like how successful I've been was because I take it so serious. It's a full-time gig and I care, plain and simple.
No, you do care, and it's the consistent refreshing and you just being there for support. You being there for support. And I think that that's something that separates. I want to dive into something because you had
Yeah,
mentioned salesmen and how people look at that. I think that people do view a lot
100%,
of
all the
PTs
time.
because there is a business side of it. It's like, yeah, we are trying to grow a business, but I'm really trying to help people. That's my vision. That's this
Right.
sense of that's my purpose. That's my goal. My purpose and my goal isn't to grow a business. It's really to help people. And with that, both come hand in
It's
hand.
gonna happen because if you're putting care into those people are also receiving results. They're super satisfied. Now, that's like the business. Instead of me going to sell, I have one people that look the part and people are like their people are saying, "Oh, what are you doing?" And then that's where it's like you plant that seed into that client. That client, of course, adores that trainer for getting that client from A to B. You know, there's no, I don't ever really even talk to people and sell. Most of the time I'm having people coming to me saying, "Hey, listen, I see you work with Donna. Donna lost 50 pounds. She's mentally better, she's physically better, um, she has more energy, and that person wants that. So that's why they're coming to me. And I bet people do that to you all the time. Like I know you're big with the athletics, the lacrosse, the footwork, agility. You probably have those kids talking to their buddies at school saying, "Yo, this kid's this guy Jake, he's awesome. He's super super like strict but dope, and he knows what he's talking about. And he
And
keeps
by
me in
word of
check.
mouth,
Yeah,
word of
it's
mouth
so word of mouth, bro. That's the big thing in the fitness industry.
is word of mouth. And once they see, I think that once they see results, but now
Yeah,
how important, like, so when you're working with somebody, obviously we don't want to be so outcome based. It's not like, okay, like we're working out because we're trying to hit this goal. If we don't hit this goal, you're a failure. How important is it when you're training somebody to get them to love the process? And this is something that I talk to a lot of my clients about is just the process, because sometimes if we're so outcome based and we're thinking about losing that 50 pounds and it's been a year and we haven't done it yet and we're looking at ourselves like a failure, that almost sparks this light to give up
right.
instead of thinking about the process of like, yeah, maybe I went a year, maybe I didn't reach my goal, but maybe my mind developed. Maybe
Yeah.
I showed up consistently to train. So, James, how important is that to get the person that you're working with to see the process and to love the process? I also know this too when I watch you coach and when I watch you train is I think that you try to make it fun for the individual.
You
Like
beat me to it.
you're literally trying to make fitness fun. What
100%.
ways what ways do you make fitness fun for the individual, and does it change depending on the person?
Great question. So, my first thing, energy. No one wants to come in to someone that has no energy, doesn't lead by example, you know. That's one thing I know we did the boxing. Boxing is so fun. Every client that comes in the door,
I
I'll
agree.
always recommend it. Yeah, man. The boxing's great. And but yeah, moving more towards like getting them to fall in love with the process, even though I was somewhat going there. Yeah, you make it fun. You have to explain to them that fitness is such a broad thing. There's totally something you can find that is gonna, move you in the right direction. Boxing's one of the main things, but some people like just riding a bike. Some people like swimming. Some people like lacrosse. Some people just like powerlifting, heavy weightlifting. They find their niche. But like you said, dude, the process is the most important thing. And that's with many things in life, like making money. People want to be a millionaire, but people don't want to bust their ass 16 hours a day. People don't
In
want
order to
to.
get there.
Exactly, man. I feel like honestly too, and now we're gonna somewhat go a little bit in a different direction.
No,
But
that's
with
okay.
AI today, dude, AI is incredible. Like every single person has every answer at their fingers, but I still don't understand why people are still so lazy. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. It goes back into you can know all the information in the entire world unless you're willing to apply what you learn into daily action. There's
Right.
no growth that's ever going to be made. And that's why a lot of like on my social media, I like to use this phrase, learn, apply, grow. And
Yeah.
the reason I like that is because you could learn all the knowledge in the world. I could have so much knowledge inside my mind. And I actually talk to people that when I hear them speak, I'm like, wow, you know a lot of information.
Right.
But but not everybody applies everything that they learn into every single day of their life. And that's
Right.
something that I really see is, we can know all of this different information, but if you don't apply it every single day in every single thing that you do, it's going to be really hard for us to grow over time. And that's definitely something that I see within my practice, and that's why I like to teach that phrase, learn, apply, and grow, because when you learn something, like when you're applying it, that's where the learning really begins. It's
Yeah.
a you mentioned something earlier where you were talking about our sessions. What I
Mhm.
loved about our sessions is every single session I learned something new, but I didn't grow until after the session. I
Right.
didn't grow until I took what I learned from you, what you taught me, and worked on it on myself after the session,
Right.
outside
The
of
homework.
and consistently.
Yeah.
It's not just one day. And you reference it as homework. I think it's great. And here's the thing is it should be fun. Like it should be good homework.
Right.
When we're asking people to train, we're asking them to work for themselves. So many people in life will work so hard for
Yeah.
something
For someone
else
else. Right.
and not put that same work into themselves. And that's something that drives me a little insane because,
For
and
sure.
this is something that I see with even people that I love and care about deeply that are within my circle. I'm like, you know how hard you work at this? You know how hard you're working in your backyard to make sure the backyard is nice and tidied up and you got everything organized and stuff. Imagine you took that same approach and you put it towards your health and fitness.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I think so many people, there are so many smart, intelligent human beings on the planet. And I think that AI definitely increases the intelligence because it's obviously smarter than us. We can't really compete against it. It's smart. I
Right.
think we could use it as a tool. But
For
then once
sure.
you learn what you learn from it or what you learn from somebody like you and I or something that you read online immediately needs to be applied to
Right.
your life. You know,
Yeah.
otherwise there's no growth there. You could
Right.
have all the knowledge in the world. If you're not applying it to your daily actions, it's going
Right.
to be very hard to grow. Do you see that a lot? Do you, as far as like AI, you know, obviously you're using it a lot within your practice, which is great. But I also know that you're taking action on the things that you learned. What is like something that you really use? Like for me, I'm using AI to like I'm writing something into the system and I'm asking it, "Hey, what do you feel about this?" I'm actually asking it perspective because
Right.
I
Right.
believe that it has in the algorithm, if technology is like algorithm based and it's taking all this information in, the AI must be programmed by a human being, just
Human
thousands
made
and
AI.
millions of human
Yeah.
being.
Yup.
So it's got to have perspective, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so like
Yeah. Yeah.
in what ways do you use it as part of your practice, James? And how could somebody use it for positive?
Right. I definitely will use it. Like if I'm putting out, I like to I have a mass text group chat of all my clients. So, there's times, yeah, for sure. Like I love to keep them motivated outside the gym. Sometimes I'm dry out of ideas. So I'll be like, hey, listen, it's something as simple as, hey, make me a challenge that my clients can follow for the week. Okay. And they'll give me a dozen challenges. I'll find something I like. I'll paste it in, I'll reword it to, how my language is, obviously, because I don't want them looking at it like they're reading a robot. But
Uh-huh.
I'll always put me into it. But yeah, for sure, dude. That's like a big piece where I'll use the AI. Um,
That's
you know,
making things easier for you too.
dude,
Easier.
yeah. And then obviously just being that coach, being there, pushing them through the way. You know, it's definitely a game changer for sure. And also with like social media content, I'll always use it for, you know. But I'm gonna start using it for perspective. That's a good one. Because I'll always put myself in the seat of my client, because and you and I both, we've taken classes, we've worked with other trainers before, being that client. Um, so I'll always, look at it on both sides, but that's something I'll probably take out of your book and apply it, you
Yeah,
know?
taking the
Yeah.
perspective. It
Yeah.
is. It's something that interests me, and I do feel like it could be used as a tool, especially for maybe people. This is another thing too, and when you're thinking about relationships and being able to communicate with other people, not everybody's open to hearing your expression or being able to show you support the same way like a coach does or even like a therapist. You know, like when we're doing our job, we're supposed to be supportive and hearing other people,
Yeah.
you know, and offering some sort of advice and maybe some guidance and stuff like that. And not everybody gets that on a daily basis from people that are in their life, and it's unfortunate. I think that I think that it's challenging because in order for one to master oneself and the relationship within themselves, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And for me, I really like to use writing. I think that writing is Writing and reading is a way that you not only gain perspective and you take an input, but then you put out output through the writing, and it allows you to like it helps us express ourselves. And
100%.
I think that that's a huge tool for us to be using in regards to like developing on our self-improvement journey is like what better way to learn ourselves than to write it down on a piece of paper. But not everybody has the guidance as far as what to do when they're doing that. And even when you do, like now you might be writing to yourself, you're only hearing your perspective, you're hearing one side. Now, if you start to write to an AI or another person, you're guaranteed to hearing a feedback or other or some sort of different perspective, maybe thought that
Yeah.
you might not have been thinking about. This is another thing, and I think this is interesting, going keeping the topic of AI, because I do think technology is one of the most amazing things in the world. It's helping us advance,
Yeah,
it's helping us be smarter, and it's making our lives easier.
for
And
sure.
I think it's great. Obviously, it's got its pros, it's got its cons, but I do
That's everything
think
in life. Yeah.
I do think it's either one of those things where you either use it or somebody else is going to be using it, but we could use it for our benefit. We could use it to learn more about ourselves. We could use it as a tool for us to grow as a human being. And I feel some people are almost in like competition with it or like
Yeah.
like in competition with the AI. Like, oh, I'm not going to use it because I know enough information myself.
Being ignorant. And that's
It
another thing that,
absolutely.
yeah, being ignorant is one of the worst things to be in life because this world is a ruthless place that will knock you on your ass. You and I both know, So once you realize that everyone's here living, you might as well help other people, be a sponge, absorb information from others. That is one thing that I tell all my clients. If you are going to be ignorant, you are not going to be successful. You know, seeing someone that's done what you want, if you're still not going to listen to them, that just never made sense to me. And you see it a lot, and I'm assuming you see it a lot, you know?
I think
It's,
a lot of it's ego, James.
yeah, yeah,
Ego's a
unfortunately.
huge thing.
Yeah. And some people need to figure it out the hard way, and get humbled. But
And we all have ego. I think
for sure, to a certain extent.
we all have ego, and I think the ego, and this is part of my practice with the athletes too, is understanding the separation between your ego and your humility state. And I think that for people in general, like we all need to understand the separation between the two. The ego is really very much preventing us from learning. And that was something that
Yeah.
I learned through my experiences is when I was at school, I refused to listen to other people. And it was
Yep.
because inside my mind, I felt like I knew everything.
Yep.
How do I possibly know everything? I don't think there's ever going to be a second in this entire world, James, where we're going to know enough information. It's
Never.
impossible.
Never,
It's
man.
literally impossible.
Yep.
And I think that once people understand the differences and they drop that sense of ego, they can
Right.
begin to really start to learn. And then when they start to learn and they see how much they grow, then it's almost like, oh, okay, like why didn't I do this sooner? Did you ever
Yep.
have like an aha moment like that where you were like, oh, you know what? Maybe I am running on my ego. Maybe I need to like put this off
For
to the
sure.
side so I could start learning
Yep.
something.
Yep. And that's self-reflection right there. And that's another thing that, people need to be doing, and tying it to everything we've talked about today. If you're not self-reflecting, you're not going to hit your goals. You're not going to learn, you know? So that is so important for sure. Because
Self-reflection.
yeah, and when you learn it at a young age, it definitely does carry forward, you know? Um, because that's the thing, and I learned that at a young age, you can either learn from your own mistakes or you can learn from someone else's mistakes. So if you're not ignorant and you listen to other people, you're going to save yourself a lot more, leeway of obstacles in life, for sure, you know? That's one thing
100%.
yeah, that's one thing I have always kept in the back of my mind. Um, and it's one goal, like I know everyone has their little New Year resolutions, but my always one of my goals is to, meet people, build relationships, And the people that I want to become and the people that I look at like a role model, I follow their footsteps and I want to be them. So why, like, if you can find a model, you want to listen to them so you can be that person one day.
Mentorship, mentorship.
Mentorship. I really started learning about that probably about like 2 years ago. Once I knew I wanted to make fitness full time, and it really just goes for everything in this day and age. This is a whole nother topic about, what you know versus who you know. I am way more of a believer of it's who you know, but then from who you know, you have to put the work in for sure. So
Put
I've
the
I've
work
always
in.
been just, yeah, man, meeting new people, learning, and I'm never afraid to, yeah, like drop that ego and start at the basics, just like someone like you. You're a great athlete, great footwork. You've you know, you've been doing what you do for so long, but now tying it back to our sessions, you came in and I remember you telling me this. You're like, James, like, let's start. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I'm not an athlete.
Yeah,
Like, even though your footwork was so enhanced and, next level, you still were like, James, like, let's go back to the basics. Let's learn. So,
fundamental.
yeah, yep. It's
I
just
think
putting that ego aside. Moral of the story is put the ego aside and don't be ignorant. That's just to tie it all together for sure. And grow
100%.
someone. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really want to touch on, you mentioned mentorship or
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
indirectly, but that really is, I think that mentorship in this world is the most valuable thing on the entire planet. It's the
For
most
sure.
valuable thing on the entire planet is to be able to have somebody that is willing to share lessons, willing to express themselves to you.
Hmm.
And it's not only powerful, it's spiritual. When
Yeah.
you think of spiritual health, your connection between people that are older than you, people that are younger than you, being able to connect, being able to grow.
Yeah.
These people, and I'm very fortunate. I have people in my life, and obviously you have to be open. You have to be open to engaging in conversation with people.
Yeah.
And so, but I've been so lucky in the last few years of my life that I've met some amazing people that have been willing to give me unsolicited mentorship within my community. And I
Right.
think that you really get that at the gym. You get that at schools. You get
Yeah.
that at places that are helping you elevate, not necessarily at a bar. Most people
Yeah.
our age, they like going out, they like doing different things, and that's great. That's on them. But I do feel that putting ourselves in environments where you are speaking to people that are older, that are successful, that show up to the
Done it.
gym every single day. They've
Right.
done it and they're willing to open up and express themselves. But I also think that that goes back into curiosity and that ties back into ego is
Yeah.
being able to open yourself up to being curious and
Hmm.
asking these questions to these people. And I think that especially young athletes are told what to do their whole lives. So they almost become oppositional at a certain point. Is that something that you've seen within your experience, or maybe you have younger siblings or something, or maybe
Hmm.
you've had within your own experience, growing up, been told what to do all the time to the point of which now when somebody tells you something to do, you almost close yourself completely off. I see this with some of my athletes is
Yeah.
like they now they don't want to listen to anybody and I'm trying to understand why. I'm trying to understand
Right.
why.
That's
And
a great, yeah.
part of me thinks it could be because of that. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on, being a child, being told what to do throughout your first 18, 20 years, and now all of a sudden you're 18, 20 years old and you think you know everything, so you just want to kind of close off, keep everything inside, and now you obviously have control because you
Yeah.
have control. But now it's limiting your ability to drop the ego and learn from somebody else. Do you think that that's something that happens to say like 18, 19, 20-year-old men in particular?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I totally could agree with that. For sure. I'm not gonna lie. I was very fortunate, like growing up. And I guess just the way my brain's wired. I mean, I've always been a curious person. When it's something that I have a passion for or something I'm interested in. I'm so curious. When it comes down to something I'm not, yeah, for sure. I'll kind of just shut my brain off and whatever. But yeah, man, no, I mean, I totally agree. That's just something like when I was growing up, I mean, my parents were also just super lenient. I was just, and not to, hype myself up, but I was just always like a good seed, man. I was never bad in school. I always got like killer grades. My parents never had to tell me to study. My parents never had to tell me to, treat people with respect. I was always someone I overused my manners, even being younger. I know we're talking about like 18 to 20 right now, but I'm talking now like even at 11 or 14 years old.
Yeah.
You know,
Respectful.
I just developed those habits where, I never had that feeling where I wanted to shut people out once I was being told to do something. But for sure, like everyone's different, and for you to be working with the athletes you work with, because I'm more like I work with the older crowd. I would say at the moment probably like 30 to 50 years old, like my target like niche of clientele. But for you to be working with the younger kids, I can only imagine. I have a couple of one-on-ones, like younger kids. Um, most of them are pretty mature for their age. There's some though that, will shut me out and they'll
Mhm.
learn for themselves. You can
And
lead the
I
horse to
think
water.
most people that end up coming to work with you are the ones that don't have, they're actually able to drop it. I think that
Right,
most people that end up working with a trainer are the ones that are able to drop the ego,
right.
want to learn, want to absorb. But then
Yeah,
there's people out there that I know deep down inside they want to. They might want
right.
to work with somebody. They might feel like somebody's going to help them take that next step. But
Yeah.
there's this sense of fear, uncertainty, or something that's happening inside that's kind of deterring them from making that final decision. What would you say to somebody that was maybe in that position, that maybe
Mhm.
like wanted to work with somebody, but that just maybe wasn't comfortable enough to reach out or ask somebody
Right.
for help? How would you kind of like, what would you say to somebody for that? Like, what would you say to them as far as them seeking help?
I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, like if someone's gonna seek help, I'll do everything in my power to bring them on in and make them feel comfortable. I tend to, make people feel very comfortable. I get that a lot. I always ask my clients for feedback, just to make sure I'm being the best trainer I
Feedback,
can for them.
awesome.
Yeah, man. Again, reflection. We're reflecting. So, for the most part, you know, all my clients say I'm extremely welcoming, you know, little things. If I'm running like a boxing boot camp or a class, or an agility, you see a straggler kind of like sitting on the side, like kind of eyeing down, seeing what's going on. For sure, I won't call them out so everyone's staring at them, but I'll be like, yo, listen, yo, I see you kind of staring over here. What's going on, man? Like, and engage conversation. And you build
Yeah, yeah.
relationship. You get that, you break the ice. It's breaking the ice.
You're
Once you
reading
get
you're
the
reading
ice
social
broken,
cue.
that's it. You break the ice, you make them feel comfortable, and then that's it. You pull them in, you invite them in, and you let them make their decision. And then based off their actions, you can see if they want it or not, you know?
Absolutely. I like what you said. You were mentioning you ask your clients for feedback.
Yeah, dude.
That's amazing, James,
Hmm.
because there's and I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a lot of people out here that aren't willing to ask for feedback.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
100%.
and I just think you even saying that just means you want to grow. You talk about reflection, that means you want to grow. How
Yeah,
important is
man.
it for us to be constantly growing? Obviously, we're both young. I know James, you're 21 or 22.
22,
22,
22, yeah.
22,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna be 26 soon.
Good
Obviously,
for
life
you.
does speed up. It goes a little
Oh,
fast.
for sure, yeah.
Um, but I do believe like when I'm looking into the future, I just never want to stop learning and
Yeah,
growing and reflecting. And I feel like you have similar goals, and I think that that's why we connect is
yeah.
because you have similar goals of constantly learning. When you're looking into your future and you're thinking about like your development, like where, like what is something that you see? Like what's your vision? What's like your long-term goal looking into the future here as far as
Mhm.
like your training, your coaching? What is like something that you would like to see yourself do within the next like 15, 20 years?
In the next 15 to 20 years. So that's a stretch. We'll see. I
Stretch.
mean, probably seeing some white hairs on the face, bad back. No, no. Honestly, dude, as long as I'm doing what I love, I don't care. So
Doing what you
I know that's
love.
a broad question, well, broad answer to your question. Um, if I have my own facility, awesome. If I'm working under someone, awesome. If I'm
But
doing
you're still coaching.
I'm coaching,
Is
man.
You're
I'm
still
coaching.
coaching.
That is not going to change. What might change is where, and how, if and what, target audience I'm going to be targeting. Um, but yeah, dude, it's in my blood. I've genuinely learned, even if it's something part-time, I am striving to make this full-time. And I know I'm young, I'm 22, so I've all the time in the world.
Plenty of
Obviously,
time.
though, you can look at that at two different perspectives. Like you can look at that as like, you know, I can sit back and relax. That's not what I mean. But I know I have time to make mistakes. I have time to build connection. Um, I have time to take risks. So
Do you think there's value, James, in working with a young guy? Like is there value with working? Like obviously there's different things that you could get from somebody that's older. But do you
right.
think it's valuable to be working with a young trainer that's fresh, that has lots of energy, that is learning constantly? Like is that a value to people? Like should people like seek a
Yeah.
young trainer, seek somebody that's passionate?
And that's a good question. I mean, and honestly, it played out. I walked into Unique at 18 years old, um, which is a fire under my ass. I just got my certification. Um, I was definitely the least knowledgeable trainer there, and I can humbly admit that. The other trainers there definitely had a couple of years of experience, a lot older, multiple certifications, the whole nine. But I walked in there with the fire under my ass. I grinded. I approached every single person to introduce myself. I think energy is the most important thing into being a personal trainer. Experience
Energy.
comes if you can have all the experience in the world, if you do not have like, a warm, high energy personality, you're just not going to succeed. And that's my opinion, you know.
No, it's 100% true, and I think that as
Energy,
some trainers age, there is burnout that's involved with the profession.
for
And when
sure.
you think about it, obviously we're trainers because we love fitness. But when we are coaching, we actually are getting so many reps of lifting mentally. So it
Right.
almost like mentally is draining. Then all of a sudden, so like let's say we have 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions in a day. That's about 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. And
Yeah.
then now we're asking ourselves to go work out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very easy for us, unless we're super passionate about it and unless we really focus on like it's actually effort to not burn out.
Right.
But it's very easy, and this is something that I see with a lot of older trainers just within my circle is
Yeah.
that they are tired, they are burnt out, and they kind of lose some of their passion
Yeah.
and it makes me fear the future because I don't want to be in that same situation. I don't want to be, say, 50, 60 years old, training, working with people, and I just have no energy to just
Right.
or desire to be there or passion or love. Then there's other people that are in the industry that are almost 60 years old that look young, that show up, they're
Yeah.
smiling. Like I see this all the time, but obviously it depends. I think it's very dependent on the person and we'll see as we age. But to be honest, James, like I feel like the reason why I connect with you is I feel like you're very similar, like-minded individual. Like I think that
Yeah.
that's part of your goals. Is that part of your goals? Constantly,
Yeah, man.
constantly evolving, like wanting to
Yeah.
be 60 years
And
old and feeling
right. And just
passionate
being
about
in
what
the
you do?
industry, like you said, like once we're older, who knows if we're gonna have that energy? That might be a time now where, we can put actually training clients to the side. That's something now you can look at managing trainers. Now you could train trainers.
Absolutely. And coaching trainers, 100%.
Exactly. I might not have the energy to train a client anymore and get them motivated to come work out. But, you have someone that's getting into the personal training industry, want to grow and soak in and absorb information, you led by example, you know? So now you can give those people that want it the information and they can do what they please with it. Apply it. Like we said since the beginning, applying what we're learning. Um,
Applying. I think it really does just boil down into like learning, applying, and growing every single
yeah,
day,
every
every
day,
single
man.
day, and then
Yeah.
falling in love with the process. We mentioned
Yeah.
a little bit earlier about like loving the process of the growth. I think if we learn, apply, and grow, and just enjoy the
Yeah.
process each and every day, I
Yep.
don't think that we can ever go wrong. James, where if somebody was to find you, what is some of your socials? What type of training do you really offer? Like, who is your ideal client?
So, this is gonna my ideal client and what we were talking about a little bit earlier. My ideal client is just someone that wants to show up and put the work in and fall in love with the process. If there's people like any potential client, I'll always ask these couple of questions along the lines of, are you willing to start drinking just water instead of soda? Are you willing to change your diet? Are you willing to change your lifestyle? Are you willing to be consistent and show up? Are you willing to give me energy? Are you willing to meet me halfway there? So anyone along those lines, if you can answer those questions and they're all good answers, you're an ideal client for me. I've worked with a 5-year-old. I've literally done boxing with a
Uh,
5-year-old. Yeah. I worked with a 96-year-old that had a stroke about 8 months prior to our training. And I've worked with clients with MS that have lost all the muscle in their legs and just every day them showing up, they were told by their surgeon they'd never be able to squat or sit Indian style, doing both of those things now. You know, went from a walker to actually walking with no cane at her son's wedding.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yup.
It just goes to show you
Yeah.
how awesome this career choice is
That's
and
what
and
it
this
is,
job,
man.
and it really
Most
is. It's
hum.
like you
Yeah.
see the growth,
Yeah, dude.
you see the
People
growth.
coming in, like I had this one other guy, my first ever client actually came in, blew his rotator cuff out a year ago, got surgery. He did P physical therapy for 6 months and he still had no range of motion overhead. In about 4.5 weeks, I had him dumbbell pressing 20-pound dumbbells for 10 to
And
12
he's
reps.
able to do it.
Yeah, man.
It's insane what movement does, especially when you're thinking about the
Yeah.
muscle. And we didn't really
Yeah.
dive into a lot of like training philosophy today, but
Right.
obviously I want to be able to open the floor up because I would love to have you on here again and
Dude, for sure.
multiple times. Obviously we could talk for hours. This is
Dude,
stuff
yeah.
that we are passionate about.
Right.
James, if somebody was to find you on social media,
Yeah.
where would they go? What's your social media? And I'll also
Um,
tag it in here as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, I do a little bit of TikTok. That's jm.athletics. I can send you, yeah, I can send you the
Absolutely.
links and
Send it
stuff.
to me and I'll put the
Yeah,
links in there too.
yeah,
JM
and then
Athletics
Instagram,
and then Instagram.
James.Maringo.
James.Marengo. Listen, guys,
Yep,
I love the way that James coaches. I think he's very passionate. He does a really good job of developing relationships with the people that he's working with. James, thank you so much for hopping on call. And I really would like to get you on here soon again. And we'll really dive into more of strength, fitness. Maybe we'll get
dude,
into a
yeah,
little bit of boxing technique and stuff like that too.
yeah, man.
But definitely want to open the floor up here so that we can engage in more conversation and get to learn. Because something that I love about this stuff is every single time you hop on a call, no matter how long it is, you always learn something. And what we were
Yep.
talking about
Learn
before,
something
you
every day. You learn
learn
something
something
every day.
every
People
day.
don't realize it. But yo, Jake, thank you very much for having me, bro. And yeah, I'll be back soon for sure. It's always a good conversation with you.
Absolutely. All right, James, we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Be good.
All right, peace.
Later.